Come grab your seats. We're going to get going. Good morning. My name's Ellen Hanak. I'm the director of the Water Policy Center at PPIC, and we're just really delighted to be able to spend the morning with you to talk about what's next in California water. It's a big transition year ahead. This is the fall is always a time. We have these water policy conferences in the fall because it's a time when folks think about what's going to be the legislative agenda for the coming year, and what's the administration going to be doing. And we're now at a point where we're transitioning from 8 years of the Brown administration to the Newsom administration, and there's a lot of, I guess, question and wonder and speculation about kind of to what extent will this new governor continue the legacies that have gotten underway under Governor Brown. To what extent will he want to take us in different directions? To what extent will he care about water relative to all of the other priorities that he's got on his plate? And so we thought this was a good opportunity to provide some input to him and to other folks that are going to be thinking about what they'd like to ask him to have on his agenda. So we've got an exciting program for you in that regard. But before I sort of kick off the program, I just want to say a couple of words of thanks to our annual sponsors who made this event possible. They are shown right up here on the logos. A number of representatives from these many groups are in the room, so please thank them. Thank you if you are one of them, and if you aren't and you see them, please thank them for supporting us. And if you aren't already a supporter, think about joining us next year as part of our annual sponsor group. It's a way to really bring folks together from all across the spectrum of California water to really help support objective, nonpartisan work on California water that we hope will help to really make the conversation on water productive and creative and fruitful. What we've also got on in addition to the programs on at your tables are the new edition of California's Water. This is a briefing kit with 13 short policy briefs, updated quite a bit since the last time we published it in 2016. So I think this is going to be a useful tool for the new administration as well as for folks across the state interested in California water. And the briefs are short enough that they're the kind of thing that can be used both by experts and by experts when they want to hand something to somebody who doesn't have water as their full-time job and wants to get up to speed quickly on something. We've added a new one this year on providing safe drinking water, really to help bring some of the key facts about that key issue to the fore. So I also, let's see, do I have a little bit of housekeeping to tell you? The program itself, I'm going to give you a quick overview of some of the things in the briefing kit, and then we're going to move on to 3 great panels. We've got a break scheduled in between a couple of the panels, and then at the end of that we're going to have lunch, which is really just a non-programmed thing in order to give folks a chance to just network. So if you want to move around at that point, kind of do your first course in one place and have your cookies in another place. It's just a good chance to chat and visit. Other housekeeping, the restrooms are outside and upstairs. And please turn off your cell phones if they're still on. And you will be getting an email at the end of sometime today with just a few short questions to give us feedback on how this went and suggestions for improving it. And so we really hope you can do that because that always helps us to do better with our events. And I think there is a hashtag if anybody is tweeting, hashtag water priorities. And I also want to say hello to the folks that are watching via webcast, and that this will be, the videos from this will be posted 2-3 days from now. And so they'll be available for anybody who, if you want to watch it again, or if you want to forward it on to somebody who missed it that you think would find it useful. So, okay, I'm going to kick off with this overview presentation now. So just to start by reminding that water is really a crucial issue for California. It's not the only crucial issue that the new governor is going to have to contend with, but it's a really important one. And just to show you beyond, that's not just us thinking that it's important as sort of water policy analysts and experts, it's also true for the California public. This is from our July 2018 environment survey that surveys Californians across the state. When they were asked in an open-ended question, what is the most important environmental issue in California? You can see that water supply and drought was at the top, but also water pollution was there. So altogether, close to a third of Californians name a water-related issue as the top environmental challenge. And water is very important in and of itself, but it also, just in terms of thinking about protecting from floods, making us resilient during drought, making sure that we have water available for our various needs in our economy and society and environment. It's also very keenly tied into some of the other key issues in California, including population and economic growth, housing affordability, aging infrastructure. Water is a piece of that aging infrastructure puzzle, and climate change. And we're going to have a panel that's going to specifically be focusing on water and a strong economy that will get into some of those issues. Now, I want to just tee up for you a little bit this theme of climate change and a couple of other cross-cutting themes that are really important when you think about water, and then give you a few thoughts on some of the priorities we see for the next administration. So climate change. Really, a lot of California's policy on climate has been about climate change mitigation and lowering the emissions of greenhouse gas emissions. And California's really been a leader both nationally and internationally on this. And we think that California has the potential to be a leader on climate adaptation when it comes to water as well, and in general, and when it comes to water. Water is really one of the first things that you start where you start to feel the impacts of climate change. And it's kind of on top of this very variable climate that we already have with droughts and floods, just an accentuation of that going forward. And everything that we do today to prepare for the changing climate will also help us now. And we came out with a report in September looking specifically at how the changing climate is going to be affecting our ability to manage drought and the flip side of that, which is floods. And there are 5 key pressures when you think about the changing climate that are already happening and that are going to be happening more as we look forward. Warming temperatures, shrinking snowpack, shorter wet seasons with bigger spikes of rain when we do get it, or precipitation when we do get it in the winter, and less on the 2 sides of the fall and the spring. More volatile precipitation from year to year, so more extreme dry years, more extreme wet years, and then rising seas at an accelerating pace, which affects water supply in a number of ways. Now, when you think about all of those different factors, that's happening against a background where there's an expectation that average precipitation might not change, but we're going to be looking at a likelihood of drier dries, wetter wets, and the need to manage increased variability in order to meet all of the competing needs for water. A few of the issues are dams. We have 1,400 plus dams in the state. Many of them they were built mostly in the last century, and they were designed and they're operated for the conditions of the past climate largely. And we have to be thinking about both the dam safety issues that are cropping up now with the aging of some of these dams, but also how we remanage these in the context of the changing patterns of precipitation. Our systems are not adequate for recharging aquifers to the extent that we need to be doing that. We're lucky to have a lot of aquifers in the state that can be replenished, and we have to get better at that. Our ecosystems are on the brink with the way we're managing things currently. And as this week's fires are a testament, severe and devastating fires are becoming more and more common. This one is especially related to this shorter wet seasons and less precipitation in the fall. In Northern California, the combination of heat and less precipitation in the fall seems to be really a big factor, for example, in the Camp Fire. So another key issue that's going to be made worse by climate change, but is already something that's been kind of a hidden issue for a long time in California, and that is finally now really on the radar, on the policy radar, I think, but where we need to continue to make and actually accelerate progress is on making sure that all Californians have access to safe drinking water. And this is partly an issue of water quality and the fact that there are some systems that just are not able to reliably serve safe water out of the tap. That is especially systems in rural communities, especially very small systems. This is a picture on the is that your left-hand side, of systems that were out of compliance in the summer, in midsummer this year, and you can see that they really are all over the state. There are different colors there that show that there are a number of different contaminants that are an issue in different places. Nitrate is an important one, but not the only one by any means. And then the chart on the right shows you what happened during the drought, and that is showing you both wells, domestic wells that went dry. A number of, thousands, hundreds of thousands of Californians rely on domestic wells for their drinking water. About 2,600 were reported to have gone dry. We know that that is an understatement because not everybody reported that. And then there are also some dots there showing you small systems that needed emergency assistance during the drought because they were running out of water or running into water quality problems related to the drought. So that's an issue that happens during every drought. This drought, we were much better at getting on top of it quickly once the problem started to happen, but this is something that we need to get ahead of so that we can mitigate before the problems start next time. And then another cross-cutting issue I wanted to highlight, just as something that everybody has on top of mind, I think, in the water world right now, is funding. California spends about over $30 billion a year on water writ large, including water supply, water quality management, flood management, ecosystem management. But there are challenges in some areas, and if you look sort of across the different sectors, what you find is that local water rates and local taxes pay for about 85% of all of our spending. For water supply infrastructure, water users pay for most of it, by far the vast majority of it. There are some fiscal orphans that we've identified over the years. This includes safe drinking water in these poor rural communities. It includes flood protection. It includes ecosystem management. It includes stormwater management. And it includes a category we call integrative management, which is ways to get organizations to work together that are not traditionally used to working together. So that includes also, I would say, groundwater management under the new groundwater law, of creating these new entities that are going to have to work together. And the chart here shows you state bonds, which people in Sacramento especially think are kind of the main way we fund water. That's not true, but it has been kind of the main way that the state has been kicking in some funds to help with various challenges that we have. And what you can see here, these are all in real, scaled to the same dollars, so that you can kind of compare apples to apples across the decades. It's really since the 2000s that we've started to rely very heavily on state bonds to support the water sector. There was just the biggest bond ever on the ballot in this last week, and that failed by, I think, 54% to whatever, the 46%. That's the first time a water bond failed since 1990. So that was, I think, a surprise for a lot of folks, given how the polling was going. And it's going to really, I think, cause some thinking about, okay, where do we go next in terms of filling the key gaps. So now, just to give you quickly 4 priorities that we see, kind of broad, overarching priorities for the next administration. The first one is to promote innovation and collaboration. Second is to build momentum on protecting rural communities. Third is to adopt new approaches for ecosystems and forests. And the fourth is to modernize the water grid. So innovation and collaboration. We've found that excuse me, cities and farms have been doing a lot to innovate, both to become more efficient, to become more diversified and have flexibility in their water use. There's a lot of work being done now with the new Groundwater Management Act in the agricultural areas especially, and there are some priorities that are really key to kind of maintain the momentum. One of them is investing in data technology. This is where the state can really play a key role. some progress has been made in the last few years, and more can be done on that. It's important for the state to make it easier to trade water. That's a really key adaptation tool. Supporting local groundwater plans. SIGMA was really a landmark act and is path-breaking, but implementation is going to be hard, and some help in doing that, both technically and perhaps also financially from the state, could be important. And then encouraging regional collaboration, and this is true. This is partly what urban areas have been doing to become more resilient. It's something that the ag areas are going to have to do as part of SIGMA, and right now they're still a little bit entrenched in some of the local solutions. Building momentum to protect rural communities' water. I mentioned the Safe Drinking Water Challenge. A lot has been done over the last few years to change the infrastructure institutionally and legally for how we can tackle this, and some funds have also been appropriated to this issue. Both state and federal are available. There are still some funding challenges for ongoing operations and maintenance. It's not a big price tag for this, maybe $100 million a year, something like that. But there are also just a need to find solutions on the ground to get folks to safe drinking water solutions, and I think we're going to talk about that in the second panel. There's also, we just have a note here, the state needs to take leadership on the Salton Sea and finding solutions. The state is committed to this, and now it's time to really get the shovels moving, digging, and start implementing some of the on-the-ground solutions to prevent some major air quality problems from increasing down there as the Salton Sea shrinks. The third, adopting new approaches for ecosystems and forests. What we've been doing, a lot of very well-intentioned things and a lot of creative new ideas that have been cropping up on how to manage our freshwater ecosystems and to protect our headwater forests. But really, we still are kind of at the beginning of this challenge in a way. And so what we're suggesting on the ecosystem side is more flexible ecosystem-based approaches that include allocating a water budget for the environment to make the environment, give the environment a seat at the table, and also thinking about a different way of planning for droughts and for climate variability. Increasing the pace and scale of forest management. This is not going to solve all of the fire problems that we have in California, and a lot of the fires we have now are not in the headwater forests, but this is something that's going to be really important for our major headwater forest areas in the Sierra and the Cascade. And then elevating solutions that work for people and nature, and this kind of cuts across the board of all of the ecosystem solutions, both in forests and in freshwater ecosystems and in upland systems. Multiple benefit ideas, and this picture of the Kern Water Bank, I think, is a really good illustration of that. That's the state's largest groundwater recharge area, and it's also one of the now, it wasn't before this recharge project started in the 90s, it's now a major wildlife preserve with intermittent wetlands. That was from the spring of 2017, that photo. And then the fourth, and this one, the third panel is going to talk a lot about, so I'll just tee it up very quickly. Modernizing the water grid. And we've been trying to introduce this terminology of a water grid to have people think about our water system, in a water supply system, in a way that kind of highlights the interconnectedness of it. What this map shows you is really just the above ground part of the water grid, which is those circles are big surface reservoirs, and all those squiggly lines are rivers and our canals and aqueducts that move water around and get it to places where people use it. What is hidden here is our groundwater basins, of which there are many, and which, as I said, are very practical groundwater basins for the most part, because they're the kind that you can recharge and you can manage very actively. And California is a leader in doing that in some places in the state, but we've got to get way better at doing that in many more places. And the new groundwater law will facilitate that by organizing the management at the local level, but there are a lot of things that the state needs to do. And so we're suggesting improving conveyance and storage capacity. That means fixing what's broken and looking at where we need to make judicious investments to improve it. There's some money that was just awarded or on track to be awarded to some big surface projects and some groundwater projects under Prop 1. There's some other things that need to be done there. Modernizing and integrating operations is another key thing, and this is about thinking about how you're managing for floods and for water supply in your surface reservoirs. So we're going to have a chance to talk a bit about using better weather predictions to inform how you do that with flood management in the second panel. But also this means thinking about getting some of the drought storage out of the surface reservoirs in the fall into the ground so that we make more room for the bigger floods that we're going to be having in the winters. Managing surface and groundwater together is exactly that idea of thinking about that as an integrated grid, and the state really needs to work on removing barriers to groundwater storage in order to make this happen. And with that, I'm going to wrap up with this beautiful picture and say sort of a story of hope that I hope is going to pervade through the panel discussions as well, that there's a lot of opportunity. There are big challenges, but a lot of opportunity for California water. Thank you. And with that,